Hey everyone, and welcome back to Outta Here Baseball. In this video, we're going to look at the 2016 Chicago Cubs and how they were formed. 107 years. That is the length of the Cubs World Series championship drought that began way back in October 1908, the same month that the Ford Company rolled out the Model T. Prior to 2016, the Cubs last appeared in a World Series in 1945, where, as the story goes, William Cianis and his pet goat Murphy were asked to leave Wrigley Field in Game 4 of the series. Cianis said that the Cubs would never go back to the World Series, and thus the curse of the Billy Goat was born. Every time the Cubs looked to have a team capable of breaking the curse, a black cat, or a foul ball, or another character named Murphy would add to the Lovable Losers' bad luck. So how did the 2016 team manage to pull it off? We'll take a closer look as Outta Here Baseball presents the 2016 Chicago Cubs and how they were formed. We'll start our timeline with the 2012 team that went 61-101. Prior to the 2012 season, Jed Hoyer was brought in to be the Cubs general manager, and Theo Epstein was named president of baseball operations. Both were part of the Red Sox front office that helped break their own World Series curse in 2004, with Epstein as GM and Hoyer as his assistant. The Cubs roster consisted of a handful of decent pitchers and a few young position players, such as first baseman Anthony Rizzo, who was acquired from the Padres for former first-round pick Andrew Cashner. The offense really struggled to score runs, but help was on the way with first-round draft pick Javier Baez and amateur signing Wilson Contreras in the minors. The farm system would be supplemented with Albert Almora drafted in the summer of 2012 and Jorge Soler signed as an amateur free agent. And then veteran pitcher Ryan Dempster was dealt to the Rangers in a deal that sent pitching prospect Kyle Hendricks to Chicago. 2013 was a slight improvement for the Cubs, winning 5 more games to go to 66-96. The Cubs had a young team and added to that youth by trading away pitchers Matt Garza and Scott Feldman to Texas and Baltimore respectively at the trade deadline. In return, they received relievers Pedro Strop, Justin Grimm, and Carl Edwards Jr., and a starting pitcher who had yet to find success in the big leagues, Jake Arrieta. Add to that mix All-Star Travis Wood and Rule 5 selection Hector Rondon, and the Cubs had a promising group of young pitchers. Oh, and Chris Bryant was drafted second overall that summer out of the University of San Diego. No big deal. So now in 2014, the Cubs continue to grow as a team, improving to a 73-89 record. Anthony Rizzo emerged as the offensive leader for the Cubs' young lineup, while Arrieta and rookie Kyle Hendricks showed lots of promise on the mound. Pitchers Jeff Samardzija and Jason Hamill were traded to Oakland as the Cubs continue to bring in young talent, such as shortstop Addison Russell. They also were able to draft Kyle Schwarber 4th overall, adding to an already deep group of position player prospects. After the season, the Cubs got busy and showed the baseball world they were ready to contend. Longtime manager of the Rays, Joe Maddon, was brought in to be the team's new skipper, while several players were added to the roster. David Ross and Miguel Montero were brought in to be the team's catchers, Dexter Fowler was acquired to play center field, Jason Hamill rejoined the Cubs after being traded from them the previous season, and two-time World Series winner John Lester signed to be the ace of the Cubs pitching staff. The result was a surprising 97-65 record and a wildcard berth for the 2015 playoffs. Addison Russell and Kyle Schwarber had impressive debut seasons, while Jorge Soler and Javier Baez were back for their second year in the majors. And top prospect Chris Bryant lived up to the hype and took home Rookie of the Year honors while joining Anthony Rizzo as the faces of the franchise. A big part of the Cubs' surprise season was their starting rotation, where 4 pitchers each made at least 30 starts. Lester, Hamill, and Hendricks each had successful seasons, but Jake Arrieta broke out in the biggest of ways, winning NL Cy Young honors thanks to a 1.77 ERA, allowing just 9 earned runs after the All-Star break, and also throwing a no-hitter. Despite 97 wins, the Cubs only finished 3rd in their division behind the Cardinals and Pirates, but earned a wildcard spot for the playoffs. Arrieta pitched a complete game shutout against the Pirates as the Cubs won their first playoff game in 12 years. Facing their arch-rival Cardinals in the next round, the Cubs powered their way to a 3-1 series win, hitting 11 home runs, including this iconic blast from Kyle Schwarber.
Sends one high and deep, way back, and this ball is long gone.
But that would be it for the Cubs that season. In the NLCS against the Mets, they were swept aside in 4 games, thanks in large part to the performances of Daniel Murphy, who had a home run in each game of the series. Having made major strides in 2015, the Cubs built upon their successful season by adding super utility player Ben Zobrist, veteran pitcher John Lackey, and one of the biggest names on the free agent market, Jason Hayward. So that brings us to the 2016 season, where the Cubs finished with the best record in the majors at 103-58. Several Cubs players put together the best season of their careers in 2016, with 7 players being named All-Stars, and Chris Bryant winning NL MVP. Lester and Hendricks finished second and third for the Cy Young Award respectively, and every pitcher who threw at least 40 innings for the Cubs was above league average in terms of ERA+. The team got even better mid-season when they acquired reliever Mike Montgomery from the Mariners and all-star closer Aroldis Chapman from the Yankees, as well as calling up catching prospect Wilson Contreras. With such a dominant team on both sides of the ball, the Cubs were well equipped to face the Giants in the first round of the playoffs. In an exciting series, the Cubs won the first 2 games, before losing Game 3 in extra innings. Down 5-2 in the 9th of Game 4, they rallied for 4 runs to take the lead, handing the ball over to Aroldis Chapman to strike out the Giants in order and advance to the NLCS. Facing the Dodgers, the Cubs won Game 1 thanks to a grand slam in the 8th inning by Miguel Montero, but would fail to score in the next 2 games. The Cubs bats would soon wake up, winning 10-2 in Game 4, 8-4 in Game 5, and then a 5-0 shutout to close out the series and go back to the World Series for the first time since 1945. Their opponent would be the Cleveland Indians, who had the second longest active championship drought in baseball, having not won the World Series since 1948. After 4 games, the Cubs were down 3-1 and on the brink of elimination, having scored just twice in those 3 losses. A hard-fought 3-2 win at Wrigley Field in Game 5 would send the series back to Cleveland, where in Game 6, the Cubs cruised to a 9-3 win thanks to long balls from Bryant and Rizzo and a grand slam by Addison Russell. That brings us to Game 7. Fowler led off the game with a home run to put the Cubs up early, and after a home run from 39-year-old David Ross in the 6th, Chicago was up 6-3. But in the 8th, the Indians fought back, and speedster Rajai Davis shocked the world by hitting a game-tying homer off Aroldis Chapman. After no runs were scored in the 9th, a rain delay halted the game. During that time, the Cubs had a players-only meeting, led by Jason Hayward, and upon restarting the game, the Cubs jumped out to a 2-run lead. And while the Indians would get a run back in the bottom of the 10th, they would ultimately come up short, as the Cubs took home their first World Series title in 107 years and breaking the curse of the Billy Goat. Big seasons from a multitude of players, who were acquired in a variety of different ways, helped pave the way for success for this Cubs team. Of the 25 players on the World Series roster, 5 were acquired via free agency. A whopping 13 were acquired from trades, including 6 of their 7 relief pitchers. 4 were Cubs draft picks, all of whom were first-rounders. 2 were amateur signings, and Hector Rondon was a Rule 5 selection. Add to that a clear sense of direction from the front office and top-level management, and the 2016 Cubs were destined for greatness. So that concludes our video on how the 2016 Cubs were formed. Is there a team you want to see covered? Leave your suggestions in the comments below. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and click the bell icon to stay notified on all the latest Outta Here Baseball content. Thanks for watching.